what's going on, everybody? It's me again, Golden Blue Dude. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. What I do, college football and college basketball videos every single day. Don't forget to go ahead and check out my Patreon page as well. We have a much wider selection over there, and that's where you'll find Gold and Blue Dude merchandise. And Golden Blue Dude is also on TikTok, so go check out my TikTok videos. What a mess. What a mess. I'm talking about Conference USA and the Sun Belt. Specifically, the three teams that are leaving from Conference USA going to the Sun Belt. Marshall, Old Dominion, and Southern Miss. And I've talked about this several times already, but now it's come out that there's two different schedules for all three of these teams, because they're wanting to leave Conference USA now, and Conference USA is saying, you ain't going nowhere. You didn't give us 14 months notice, so you have to serve your last year. So this has nothing to do with the buyout. They will owe the buyout, but they did not give the conference a 14-month notice. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how all that's going to play out. I do know that Marshall did get a restraining order on Conference USA for 10 days. That'll be up soon, so they're going to have to figure out something else. Conference USA is saying that they're going to take this to the fullest extent of the law as possible. They are prepared to go the distance. So I'm not sure who's going to win that. That's not what I'm here to debate. I have no idea. That's a mess. What I do know is those three teams have two separate schedules. They're on Conference USA's season schedule for 2022, and they're on the Sun Belt season schedule for 2022. For Conference USA, the East looks like this: Charlotte, FIU, FAU, Marshall, Middle Tennessee, Old Dominion, and Western Kentucky. And in the West Division, Louisiana Tech, North Texas, Rice, Southern Miss, UAB, UTEP, and UTSA. And besides those three teams that are leaving, there's also a multitude of other teams that are leaving. Charlotte, FAU, North Texas, Rice, UAB, and UTSA are all going to the AAC. But those are still in Conference USA for 2022. They're playing in Conference USA. It's those other three that are saying, we're done, we're out. Don't care if we gave you a 14-month notice. We're leaving now. We're playing for the Sun Belt. And the Sun Belt has actually scheduled them for 2022. So two separate schedules. What's going to happen? I don't know. The Sun Belt's going to look like this. The Sun Belt East: Marshall, James Madison, Old Dominion, Appalachian State, Coastal Carolina, Georgia State, and Georgia Southern. For the Sun Belt West: Troy, South Alabama, Southern Miss, Arkansas State, UL Monroe, Louisiana, and Texas State. That's not a bad looking conference. I would put it above the MAC. I would put it above the Mountain West. I would probably put it above the new look AAC. Definitely above Conference USA. The Sun Belt might be the best group of 5 conference after this next realignment. The Sun Belt has scheduled 56 conference games for 2022, including 6 divisional games for each team and 2 cross-divisional games for each team. I do like what the Sun Belt teams have done as far as their out-of-conference. Now, this is set in stone. It doesn't matter what conference they're in. Their out-of-conference schedule is done. So take a look at this. For Texas State, their out-of-conference is at Nevada, FIU, and at Baylor. That's okay. Definitely not the toughest in the Sun Belt, but it's not bad. Now, for UL Monroe, at Texas, at Alabama, and at Army. And no, I'm not counting the FCS. So for UL Monroe, man, they went big time on their out-of-conference. That is a tough out-of-conference schedule. Now, for Louisiana, they get Eastern Michigan, at Rice, at Florida State. I mean, that's okay. Maybe a little bit tougher than Texas State. Arkansas State, they get at Ohio State, at Memphis, and UMass. Well, if you take out at Ohio State, then it's not a good out-of-conference, but they did schedule at Ohio State, so that's pretty tough. For Southern Miss, they get Liberty, at Miami, the Hurricanes, and at Tulane. Besides the Hurricanes, not much of an out-of-conference schedule. South Alabama, at Central Michigan, at UCLA, and Louisiana Tech. That was not tough at all. Maybe at UCLA, that might be a tough one. I'm not sure about that, though. Troy's out-of-conference looks like this: at Ole Miss, at Western Kentucky, and Army. So decent, but definitely not the toughest. For Georgia State, at South Carolina, North Carolina, and Charlotte. I like the out-of-conference there. It's going to be tough, but not overwhelmingly tough. For Georgia Southern, they have at Nebraska, at UAB, and Ball State. Very, very, very doable out-of-conference. Watch out for Nebraska next year. I think they take a big step forward. For Coastal Carolina, they get Army, Buffalo, at Virginia. That's not very good at all, actually. At Virginia might be their toughest, and Virginia's not going to be all that great. They're going to be okay. So that's not daunting at all. For Appalachian State, North Carolina, at Texas A&M. That is a tough out-of-conference, without counting the FCS. Both of those two teams, that's going to be a very big challenge for Appalachian State. But I do think they're capable of beating North Carolina. Now for Old Dominion, they get Virginia Tech, at East Carolina, at Virginia, and Liberty. That's a great out-of-conference. It's not terrible. It's not the toughest out-of-conference, but it definitely is a challenge. Now for James Madison, they have Middle Tennessee and at Louisville. That's not tough at all. I'm sorry. Got to do better than that. And then finally for Marshall, at Notre Dame and at Bowling Green. Once again, at Notre Dame, that's a tough one right there. But at Bowling Green, not much meat on the bone. There's a few teams on here that challenge themselves, but overall, not that daunting of an out-of-conference for these teams. The question is, will Marshall, Old Dominion, and Southern Miss be playing those out-of-conference games as a Conference USA team or as a Sun Belt team? Whichever one it is, they better get it figured out, because there's no way you can play two separate schedules. That's just impossible. So it has to get figured out. So of course, as usual, I am going to take this to the comments section. Number one, do you think that Marshall, Old Dominion, and Southern Miss are going to end up in the Sun Belt in 2022? Or do you think they're still going to have to serve out that Conference USA contract? Which schedule will those three teams end up playing in 2022? Because there can only be one schedule. You know what? I'll even take this a step forward. Y'all know me. I'm always looking into the future, trying to figure out what's going to happen next. So I'm actually going to take a step forward and see what teams could actually get into the Power 5 in the future. Which one of these teams out of the future Sun Belt has the biggest possibilities of making the Power 5 jump? Kind of like what Cincinnati, Houston, BYU, and UCF just did. Well, they're not there yet, but they're gonna. Would it be Texas State? Would it be UL Monroe? Louisiana? They've had some pretty decent success here recently. Then there's Southern Miss. They're up and down. Mostly down recently. South Alabama, Troy, Georgia State, and Georgia Southern. Those are up and coming. Coastal Carolina, they are the flavor of the week right now. Kind of had a little bit of a down year this past year, but Coastal Carolina is building their brand right now. Appalachian State, I think Appalachian State has one of the strongest brands in the Sun Belt as of right now. I definitely think they have a big possibility of jumping to a Power 5 status. Then there's Old Dominion, James Madison, and I hate to admit this. I hate it. Marshall. Out of all the teams in the Sun Belt, or the new look Sun Belt, Marshall might have the biggest chances of making a leap to the Power 5 status because of what they've done so far. I mean, they used to be the lower division, what's known as FCS now. Then they jumped to the MAC. Then they jumped to Conference USA. Now they're jumping to the Sun Belt. So from weakest to strongest, those four teams with the biggest chance of being a Power 5 team in the near future. At the bottom would be Coastal Carolina, because I don't think their brand is strong enough, even though they've been pretty good recently. Then I would say Louisiana, if they can keep having success, they would have a big chance. I like the market they're in. They would have to compete with LSU for that Louisiana market. Now I'm going to say Marshall. They definitely have the potential of doing what they've been doing, taking steps forward. But I think Appalachian State has the highest chance of being a future Power 5 team. So y'all let me know in the comment section about that as well. And as usual, I'll give you my opinion on your opinion. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.